The art of film has been a constantly evolving medium, subject to decades of theorizing from all different fields of research. With the constant influx of different genres and methods of filmmaking, as well as the progression of television to a point of higher esteem, theorists have pondered the reason why films are so appealing to audiences. One important aspect that has been discussed is the separation that exists between the spectator and the world of the film. I would like to introduce these theories and take a look at an instance that completely subverts these traditional conventions. To begin, let's discuss the traditional role of the spectator. In her 1975 work titled Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, feminist film theorist Laura Mulvey discussed the pleasure of film through the ideas of voyeurism and scopophilia. According to Mulvey, the mass of mainstream film, and the conventions within which it has consciously evolved, portray a hermetically sealed world which unwinds magically, indifferent to the presence of the audience, producing for them a sense of separation and playing on their voyeuristic fantasy, an illusion of looking in on a private world. This idea of a hermetically sealed world of the film was an unbroken and mostly unspoken rule of filmmaking for most of narrative film history. Film is a relatively newer medium, but it takes clear inspiration from other art forms, especially theater. The idea of the fourth wall is generally attributed to Denis Diderot, a French philosopher from the 1800s. Diderot told actors to not think about the spectator anymore, act as if they don't even exist. Imagine there is a big wall at the edge of the stage separating you from the parterre. Act as if the curtain was never raised. This strict separation that the actors create from the audience theoretically allows them to delve more fully into their characters and create a more immersive experience. The rules and expectations of the fourth wall naturally extended over to film. However, German film theorist Siegfried Kracauer believed films create a separation that exceeds that of theater, stating that, with the moviegoer, the self as the mainspring of thoughts and decisions relinquishes its power of control. In his theories on film, Kracauer maintains the concept that spectators lose some level of control over their senses. Films weaken the spectator's consciousness. What spectators really crave is for once to be released from the grip of consciousness. This ties in very closely with Mulvey's ideas that were previously mentioned. There is a level of satisfaction that comes with being a spectator into a world that you can have absolutely no effect on. However, rules are made to be broken, especially in film. The use of the fourth wall break has been used sporadically throughout history and has become a lot more common in the modern age. More and more, cinema has shown examples of redefining the spectator. While there have been plenty of examples in cinema and television that have used the fourth wall break, today I'm going to discuss the show Fleabag, a series that is very successful in its own right. I would argue that Fleabag is one of the most effective uses of the technique as a storytelling tool and is an excellent example of a diversion from Mulvey and Kracauer's theories. Fleabag started off as a one-woman play performed by Phoebe Waller-Bridge in 2013. Waller-Bridge went on to produce, write, and star as Fleabag in a BBC TV series adaptation of the same name in 2016. The first season follows the same plot as the original play, and the second and final season occurs a full year later.
Dad's way of coping with two motherless daughters
was to buy us tickets to feminist lectures, start our godmother, and eventually stop calling. I realise I'm wearing the top that she lost years ago, so...
This is gonna
be tense. Her eyes fixed on it.
Do you want to take your coat off? No.
Okay.
And I can see her brain ticking. She decides to bank it for later.
The nature of the one-woman show lended itself perfectly to the style of the TV show with its frequent fourth wall breaks. Fleabag is in constant conversation with the audience, sharing thoughts and quips on a given situation or providing exposition on her life as the story unfolds. As stated in the aforementioned theories, part of the appeal of watching films is that the world shown in the film is untouchable. It is completely separate to the spectators and they can have no effect on the events that occur. They find comfort in the opportunity to lose control, to be able to react purely based on their senses rather than their intellect. Fleabag, however, takes away this comfort. It diverts expectations and tosses aside many conventions. The show creates its own rules, and even breaks those eventually. Fleabag is an unconventional masterpiece. Throughout the first season, Fleabag struggles with the recent death of her best friend following the loss of her mother just a few years earlier. She is obsessed with sex and struggles to connect with anyone on a deeper level. Even her relationship with her family is strained and awkward. University of Cambridge's Jessica Beaumont authored a paper that discusses Fleabag in depth, and she provides many important points on the effectiveness of the show's storytelling. For instance, the idea that the author is working in opposition to the character. Waller-Bridge is trying to tell a story, but Fleabag has her own interest in mind, and and actively works to avoid certain things through her conversation and relationship with the audience. As Beaumont describes, if the protagonist is consciously engaging with the audience, there is a suggestion of a reciprocal relationship in which the audience actively engages with the protagonist and is, as such, participating in the diegesis. Things are withheld from the audience for storytelling purposes all the time in typical narratives, but in this show there is that additional relationship between Fleabag and the author where they seem to grapple with control over what the audience is allowed to see. I am going to focus on how Fleabag's relationship with the audience evolves in the second season. In contrast to movies, which only allow a couple hours of time with the world of the film, TV shows provide the opportunity to introduce an entirely new set of rules that the audience will eventually become comfortable with. Fleabag is only 2 seasons, with 6 30-minute episodes in each season, which is the absolute perfect length for the story that Waller-Bridge was trying to tell. After the first season, you become accustomed to the way Fleabag will share things with you, and also the way she will try to hide things from you. After all, in a way, her relationship with the audience seems to be a coping mechanism for her, and she spends a lot of time not being honest with herself. When the priest is introduced in the second season, it becomes obvious that he is the only person Fleabag has ever met that truly sees her. He is the first person to notice when she talks to the camera, asking her,
"What was that?
What?
Where did you just go?"
What? He's a bit annoying, actually.
What is that?
What?
That thing that you're doing, it's like you disappear.
What?
What are you not telling me?
Nothing.
Tell me what's going on underneath there.
Nothing.
Tell me, come on, you can tell me.
Nothing.
Ah,
Nothing.
What are you doing?
No, stop
Beaumont explains how this is a further departure from the conventions of cinema, even of the conventions that became a fourth wall breaks. The breaks are not supposed to be a part of the diegesis. So, when another character actually recognizes that these breaks are something that can be recognized in the world of the show, the audience becomes disconcerted, unsure of what their role entails. When Fleabag and the priest have sex, Fleabag pushes the camera away, which is in direct contrast to the camera being present during her sexual encounters in the first season. Unlike those times, she wants to have that emotional connection with the priest and does not need the audience to be there to create a barrier. Fleabag's finale brings the character's story to a perfect end. She learned a very important lesson from her love for the priest. She grew closer to her family, she grew out of her need for an emotional barrier between her and the world. Without words, she tells us that she doesn't need us anymore, and she leaves the camera behind forever as the show comes to an end. Instead of us closing the screen and walking away from the characters, Fleabag walks away from us. This is a beautiful way to wrap up the series, and adds an emotional impact to the audience after they felt this intimate relationship with Fleabag that has never been able to exist with a fictional character before. Krakauer said, "It is life and its inexhaustibility which the cinema offers to masses in want of it." Fleabag is just that, life and its inexhaustibility.